you can either enter your own header rows. So header rows are basically headings, right? So, like title and first name, last name, middle name. So across the top, the first row will be a header row. You have a choice. You can enter your own header row names, or you can use the Raises Edge header names. And this one is super helpful. If you use the Raises Edge header names, then you don't have to worry about it again afterwards. So why not just use what Raises Edge understands, right? And that's what we will, I'm going to put 2 tick marks here because that's what we always recommend, and that's what I've always ever used in my experience with Raises Edge. Or you can create separate headers and data files. This is more work. It's absolutely doable. I have never done this one because I can, you can get by with this option. But these are 3 different options that you can go with. Okay, I will recommend this second one here. Another thing that you also want to be aware of is your import help resources. The help file is going to be your best friend. I will share the import help file with you, but basically the Raises Edge field name, for example, birth date, right, for the header row, if you have birth date, Raises Edge calls it B-Day. Birthplace, you and I know what birthplace is, but Raises Edge calls it B-Place. Okay, constituent ID, Raises Edge calls it cons ID. So we actually will be paying close attention to column number 2 here in the help file. Also, we need to make sure whether it is required or not. You cannot leave a field blank if it is required. Also, we need to be aware of what values are allowed. So, if it only allows date values or numbers, you don't want to put text in that field. Okay, and then there's some extra notes here for additional information so that, we can be informed or aware of the type of column that we're dealing with. Okay, so I'm going to share with you an Excel file that looks something like this. Okay, so I've got name, I've got nickname, I've got address lines. Notice right away some people haven't provided nicknames. And then I've got 2 address lines, right? So with the name, I've got title, first name, middle name, last name in some places. In some places, I might just have first name and last name, or title, first name, last name. So again, we need to make sure, in Raises Edge, title is a separate field. First name is a separate field. Last name is a separate field. So right away, this first column, we would need to separate all the information there into separate fields. Now, it can be done manually, but that's very time consuming, or you can use the Excel functionality to separate the data. Okay, so I'm actually going to share with you a file now. So if you watch my screens, just bear with me for a moment. I'm going to take you right over into my remote desktop here. So eyes up here, everyone, and welcome to anyone that has just joined us here. Noticed a few people have joined us a little later here. So I'm going to go ahead, take you right over into my remote desktop. Now, every time I take you into application screen share, you lose the ability to chat with me. Your participants panel and your chat panel have both probably disappeared, but you can bring them back. If you hover across the top center portion of your screen over that green tab that lets you know I'm sharing my database with you, you can click participant and chat just once. Go ahead and do that, and please bring back your participants panel and your chat panel. Once you do that, please let me know with a green check if you can see my screen. If you can see my screen, go ahead, give me a green check. Okay, you should be seeing an orange background that says powered by Blackbaud Learn. And if it's visible to some of you, it should be visible to all of you. If you want to just give me a yes or a no in the text chat, that's fine as well, in case you find your green check isn't working. Okay, so it looks like everyone can see my screen. Now, I'm going to go right here to this class resources folder. I have a class resources folder because my spreadsheet is inside this class resources folder. Okay, so I'm going to open up the class resources folder. Okay, inside of my class resources folder, I have Financial Edge and Raiser's Edge. So I'm going to open up Raiser's Edge. Okay. Inside of my Raiser's Edge, I have import 1, import 2, and a number of files there that you can see, or rather folders that you can see. Well, today we're dealing with import 1. This is the import part 1 class. So I'm going to open up that import part 1 class. Or rather, import part 1 folder. And I've got my spreadsheets here. Okay, so you can see that I've got triads 1 and 2. These would be triads for you if I had an environment for you today, which I don't have. But I'm going to go ahead and open up my constituent and gift import here, this particular file. I'm going to open up this file here. Okay, I'm going to double click to open it, and you should be seeing a spreadsheet now. I'm just resizing it a little bit so you can see it a bit better and that I have a bit more control. So just bear with me for a second. It's a little slow in moving things around here, but I need to resize so that I can, I'm trying to make it a little smaller here on the diagonal. Hold on a minute, because I'm trying to get to the end of my spreadsheet. Okay, you can see the header row. Can you see name, nickname, addresses? You can see that I have a header row, right? The other thing that you probably are seeing are people's names, just like how I showed you on the slides. So I'm just resizing this so that you can see it a bit better. Bear with me for a second. It seems to be taking its time here. Okay, now I need to make sure that we separate the information in the spreadsheet. So basically, here is my spreadsheet. I'm also going to open up Raiser's Edge because I want to make sure that I share with you that help file so you can see what is required versus what is not required and what we would like to capture. Okay, so I'm just going to open up my Raiser's Edge. Bear with me for a second while I minimize this spreadsheet. And I'm going to just minimize my class resources folder. I don't really need that anymore. I'm just going to double click Raiser's Edge here and open it so I can share with you the help file. Meanwhile, I'd like you to think about if you were going to enter a constituent manually, let's say an individual, what would you be capturing? You would be capturing things like first name, last name, right? Titles, address details, right? So you know that there are fields that are required, like the last name field is absolutely required on an individual record, right? The last name field is required. You cannot leave it blank. So I'm going to take you right into my Raiser's Edge and show you a help file that is going to be my best friend today and help me understand what fields are required and the values that I will be able to use. Okay, so just opening up my Raiser's Edge here, which you should be seeing. Okay, now I'm going to go right over to import, which is part of admin. So on the navigation bar, when I go to admin, I'm going to click import. This is where I will go to get my help for import, right? So admin, import, and let's say I want to import constituent information to begin with, because that's the first thing that you're going to do. Think about when you want to add a new gift. Well, if the constituent isn't existing, you will create them first, right? And then add the gift. So the first thing that you're going to do is to look at if you are going to add new constituents via import, how can you get help for that? And so in order to get help for that, you're going to make sure that you select the correct import job, right? That's going to be constituents. So admin, import, constituent, and then look down here at the bottom, and you can see it says click here for more information about constituent imports, and that's what I'm going to do. But the constituent import is used to create new constituents. Well, that's what I want to do. I can also update existing constituents. Well, for now, I want to create new. Okay, but before creating new, the first thing that you're going to do is open up that help file. So click here for more information. So I'll click there. Now, this is going to be a help file that you can have a look at. Take a look at in your handout, slide number 15, which is what I had displayed earlier. Okay. Now, if I want to import new constituents, I need to be aware of what is required. Okay. So basically here, the constituent ID, it's telling me the constituent ID, there is a note here in the required column. It says see note at the end of the table. Okay, so I'll go to the end of the table and I'll double check, I'll show you. But let's scroll down a little bit and show you here. So as I scroll over here, the declaration start date, this is required if there is an declaration end date. We don't need that. You can see here, this is for the UK only. We don't need to worry about that. As we scroll down further, there is first name. It's not required, but we have first name in our spreadsheet. If we have gender, it's not required, but the default will be unknown. Now notice here it says import ID and it says see note at the end of the table. Okay, we'll take a look at that. As I scroll down a little further, okay, I'm just trying to understand what is required. So I went a little bit too fast there. Just go back up a little bit. You're going to see key indicator. It says it is required to add new. Do you see that? Key indicator is required to add new. Last name is required to add new individual, or for new individual. The org name would be required to add a new organization. Okay, you can see there. Okay, as I scroll down to the end of the table, okay, because I'm trying to get that note about where it said see note. So if available, one of them is required. If available, one of them is required. That is going to be either the constituent ID, the import ID, or the social security number, depending on the option selected in what ID field you want to use. We will see that when we go to import. Okay. Now, basically, you will be using the import ID. The constituent ID, yes, it is a unique identifier, but it's a front-end identifier, a front-end ID that you see on a record that can easily be modified or deleted or what have you. So if you just pretend, let's say that I want to add Kelsey's data to my Raiser's Edge. Let's say I want to add a new record for Kelsey. Now, sorry to pick on you, Kelsey, but that's what happens when I see you, when I look in my text chat window and I see your name right there jumping out at me. So if I was going to add a new constituent, you all mentioned that you are familiar with creating a new record. I would go right here to records and I would search the database first. So assuming Kelsey does not exist, I would say I want to add a new what? Add new individual. This is the key indicator right here. This is the key indicator. So new individual or organization, you are telling the database whether you're adding a new record for an individual or an organization. That is what we call the key indicator. Okay, so let's say I want to add, and so it's required, right? So I need to say whether this is an individual or an organization. Okay, we know anything in blue is required. The last name is required, right? We cannot leave it blank. So if I go ahead and fill in information here, Kelsey Jones, for example, okay, the first name is not required, but I have it, so I'll fill that in. The middle name is not required, and if I have it, I can fill it in. If not, I can leave it blank. The title is not required, but if I have it, there is a table entry here. I want to make sure if I need the value MS, that it must be existing in this drop-down selection. Okay, the gender is not required. Notice it defaults to unknown. That's what I pointed out earlier. But if I have the gender, I can fill that in. So you get the idea. There's the address lines as well. Here I can say 123 any street, right? That's the first line of the address. If I want a second line, I can say Tower B, right? I can accommodate up to 5 lines here. And then in a separate field here, I can put in the city. So I know Kelsey is in Texas, but I'm going to just move her here to Charleston. So there we go. The state has a separate field. The zip code has a separate field. Okay, like that. So I filled in some information here. But right away, you can see that, we've added a new individual. Now, when I save this record, notice here the constituent ID field, the ID field is here. I've left it blank. I haven't provided it. I haven't provided an ID number. I don't have to, because as soon as I save it, the Raiser's Edge will create the ID for me. But the field is provided, as you can see. Now, I'm going to save this record. Once I save this record, okay. I've made pets required here. Sorry about that. That was from the last time I was teaching this class. I'll go ahead and fix that so that it doesn't... let's say she has a dog. Okay, I'll fix that so that it doesn't cause a problem. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save this here.
Attaboy.
Okay, once I save this record, notice that the constituent ID is generated. 283. Well, I can change this. I can make it 383, right? It's a front-end ID. I can delete it altogether. And so basically we say that when you're adding a new record, you have to provide a field for the ID. Now you can create your own ID or the system can generate it for you. Here, the front-end ID, the constituent ID has been generated for me. But there is what we call the import ID. The import ID, you don't see it anywhere here. But Kelsey now has an import ID in my database, and that is a back-end identifier that is stamped on a record as soon as a record is created, and it will never go away, and it is set in stone. So if I want to identify Kelsey, I can tell Raiser's Edge, this record has donated $5,000. Thanks, Kelsey. I can say this record has donated $5,000 to me. I don't need to provide her name to say, she's the one who provided the donation. I can just identify her with an import ID. Now, the import ID is right here. Let me show you. If you want to see who's to blame for this record, if I go right here, who's to blame, that's the properties. I call it who's to blame, or the finger pointing, or who to thank, if you will. If I go there, I will be able to see the import ID tied to this record. You see this import ID? It's a long, hideous number that is generated by Raiser's Edge. As soon as I saved the record, it got created. Okay? Now, I could create my own numbering system for the import ID. Especially, you're going to do this especially when you have new constituents to import if they have given gifts. So first you'll create the new constituents, and then you will import the gifts and say that these are the people that made donations. And in that case, you want to create your own import ID numbering system. And that's what I'm going to do in my spreadsheet. So right now, I just wanted to show you, if I were to do this manually, what is required. You can see that in my configuration, I went ahead and created an attribute called pets, and I said we have to track a pet for every record. I will go ahead and fix that. I'll clean that up, otherwise the system will complain when I go to import data, because of course it is generally not required. I was demonstrating something last time, and I just wanted to show you how to make fields required. Okay, so basically at this point, if you're finding everything okay on how to add something manually, just give me a green check, because this is your foundation on how to import data. I will go ahead and show you now how to import the data. So I'm going to save and close this record here. Before I go any further, I'll just go into my configuration and make sure that I fix that the pet attribute is not required. What if you don't have pets? So here, I had made this required. I'm going to say it's not required. Okay, all right. The system won't complain anymore. So going back to admin and import, I would like to be able to create and to import new constituents. But before I can import new constituents, I need to be sure of what is required, and I also need to be sure that my spreadsheet is formatted correctly. Just a few minutes ago, you saw that I had separate fields for name, first name, middle name, last name, ID. Well, here in my spreadsheet, I don't have that. So I need to separate these fields. In order to separate the fields, I need to be able to basically, I'm going to use